Welcome aboard, comrades. This is Captain G with a Operation Barbarossa Game 2 between myself and Flak 88 post-game update. So if you just watched 8.1, which was Flak 88's last video, then you saw the last turn of the game. I have conceded, and we're going to end the game, and I'm going to talk about why that is. But I also wanted to go over some key aspects in the game, kind of wrap it up, talk about some of the things that we learned by playing this game compared to the first game and the differences between the two. And I thought, in honor of his victory, I'd share, because I just got it. I haven't had time to paint him yet, but this is Marshal Zhukov from one of the commanders that HBG now offers, doing his best post-game patent speech to the communist masses. Okay, so let's recap a couple key events. I have about 5 or 6 key events that I want to hit on, and then give an overview, and I'll share with you what my strategy was coming into this game. So the first big event was the war in the north. Flak 88 did a much better job than I did in game 1 in securing Leningrad. I retreated to this corner of the city, consolidated all my forces because I didn't want to be forced to protect 3 or 4 different zones. He held on, and part of the reason he held on was because this zone here is key. If the Axis take it, it activates or fully mobilizes the Finns, and they get a ton of air and ground units added to Germany. So that was key in his defense, and he did a great job of holding it. The other thing he was able to do, because one difference between this version, which is the advanced version, it has more units like medium armor, light armor, tank destroyers, airborne, etc., etc. And both sides start with a lot of that. And he had a lot of mechs. He had a larger mech armored force, if you will, up here that he was able to pull into the north, and he defeated my army groups. Trying to move as quickly as I could, I was successful in securing these bridge crossings on turn 1, and then by turn 2 I was able to move up here, and then he smashed that force, and I wasn't strong enough to push back. At that point, I had to pull back across the river, and the war for the north, the war in Leningrad, was essentially over very early in the game. So that was point 1. Point 2, down here, again, trying to move as quickly as I possibly could and get German units across these rivers, because the rivers and bridges are well, at least we like the rules that we've done, which, if you're not familiar with it, they have these river crossings on the map, and the Soviets can do the scorched earth. They can destroy any bridge, any base that they wish, any rail in a zone. Germany, if they want to destroy it, even if they own it, they can't scorch earth it. They have to target it with bombers and take it out that way. But having said that, you can attack combat across a river, but if you don't have the bridge, you cannot non-combat move, and supplies only move in non-combat. So you'll quickly trap yourself and be out of supply without bridges. So the 6th Army, Paulus, moved in across this river, and before I got a chance to repair the bridge, combat initiative switched back to the Soviet side, they got a double turn and they wiped out Paulus and this force. So it was yet another army group that I lost early in the game. Why that was such a big blow to me was my overall strategy this game was to take Sevastopol down here on the Black Sea as a critical port for me. I had 6 air transports in this game, in this version. There are no air transports in the base game, only in the advanced game. And I could carry with each one 2 airborne. And I did use them effectively, I think, later, and I'll talk about that next. But my strategy was to secure Sevastopol, repair this airbase, so my transports could operate from here. And then from this base, I would have more than enough range to send them and drop off airborne all through the Caucasus. My intent was to drop units here on Baku as well as all across here. If I was several units deep, even if he reacted, even if he had forces to react, he couldn't plow through enough of my airborne to get to Baku before I could take it. And I don't think he moved anyone into Baku until, I want to say, turn 7. So this just was their last turn. So up until then it was empty. And part of the plan, my strategy is the Axis, was to not overtly go for Baku, but to keep the main German armies heading towards Moscow, threatening these cities, Smolensk, Kharkiv, keep the large task forces in the north and in the middle, so he wouldn't have cause to send a lot of forces down there. But I did need some force, so I chose intentionally to send the weaker Axis minor forces, Italians and Hungarians, this way because I needed to be able to send in supplies after I dropped my airborne carpet. I just needed a bridge. I just needed one bridge, and then I'd be able to truck or rail in supplies down here. But all of that hinged on this airbase, and with Paulus getting defeated early here, it took me a while to get a large enough force of Italians up here. There was the whole issue with being out of supply with Tartog, and then send this force down, and I could not get one single hit on turn 7. So it took me until turn 7 to get down here. By then I knew it was already too late, but it didn't matter. I still wanted to take the city so I could at least do it on turn 8, and I couldn't take the city. I needed to take the city, repair the airbase, etc. So that Paulus and the 6th Army's defeat pushed me back several turns to doing that. Maybe it would have worked, maybe it would not have. So those 2 red dice were things that went well for the Soviets. This dice, number 3, is generally this offensive here. I think it was turn 6. I dropped airborne in a couple of these zones, or here outside of Moscow, destroyed his factories, blitzed up mech units. I sent Manstein and Guderian, moved their forces here. They were supposed to destroy these factories, then join up, and again, as part of my distraction, threaten Moscow to pull his forces north from Stalingrad, north from Kharkov, keep them around up here while the airborne did their thing. But I lost the initiative, got stuck in the mud. He relieved the force at Kharkiv because he took advantage of his factory, which was that was my oversight even in thinking about the factory. And then with all of my fighters stuck in the mud, I lost most of my remaining fighters when the Soviets attacked out. So this was a successful move for me, but then I got overextended and I lost the initiative. So it went from black dice, successful move for the Axis, to red dice, successful move for the Soviets because they countered. He was able to build 10 infantry, so I could never get to this last factory that was wide open. If I'd gotten the combat initiative, my mech could have went 1-2 and that's it. But he was able to build and then counterattack. He wiped out this combined force, trapped these guys, which forced me to rescue them. And then he attacked immediately and wiped that force out. And as you saw in his last turn, he even went after Rundstedt in the last of my steel. I've not updated my map after his turn since I knew I was going to surrender and concede. But you know, the fact that he went after it was because he knew this was the last of my teeth. Bush up northwest of Smolensk didn't really have much of anything. Some artillery and infantry, and that was about it. A couple armor, but this force was my last force, and he took out a lot of it, which including the infantry, the meat shields. So that went very well for Flak 88. And I talked about Bush and the failure at Smolensk, so that was kind of 0.5. And then 0.6, of course, was even before I was able to pull off the airborne operation, Flak 88 moved a train, moved some infantry down there, and on turn 7 and then on turn 8, he sent down some supplies. So I couldn't even hold out long enough for those guys to die on the vine. So that was an overview of the turns. That was a brief discussion of the Axis strategy coming in. We liked, again, the partisan rules. The fact that there even is a partisan rule is why you see all these German and Axis infantry back here behind the lines. That creates a burden on the German player that there must be at least a dozen, if not twice that many infantry, 24 infantry on the front. Could make a big difference for the German player. So that's the main point of the partisans. And if you ignore them at your peril. They started blowing up rail. They started taking out bridges that I needed. So partisans are a lot of fun. Great addition to the game. We've talked about encirclement already. It happened several times in this game. I encircled him, he encircled me, I encircled him. It was back and forth. It was a big part of the real war, and it's a rule that we both really enjoy. Sometimes you encircle with supplies, sometimes without. And both of us had a number of forces encircled throughout the game, and that made a difference. It's part of the strategy. You can't just have one army with everything you got on it move across the map, because it'll be encircled, and if nothing else, it will fight at a -2. What else? Economics. Part of the decision in conceding is, to explain it more fully, even though I lost a tooth of my remaining fangs here with the attacks, I still had something left. But even with the destruction of these two factories, the Soviets were producing over 100 IPP of equipment, and Germany was producing 48. So after a few turns of that, I knew I was running out of time. So that was part of it. And the second part of it is the victory conditions for the Axis change at turn 8. Through turn 8, they can score an instant win, what I call an instant win, a quick win, by taking Moscow or taking Baku, which was the point of the airborne, and holding it for a turn. So that means you have to take it by turn 7, defend it on turn 8 or earlier. You can't take it on turn 8 and win. Starting with turn 9 then, if the Axis failed to do that, the only other way to win is by taking victory points in the cities. And as you saw, I was starting to get pushed back. He was already counterattacking in Kharkov. He'd taken Smolensk, which I held only briefly. I had no chance to take Leningrad. So I was not going to earn a victory by taking cities. So all the Soviets have to do to win is stop the Germans from winning, which Flak 88 did, and he did very well. So the supply rules, we simplified them. I find them to be a lot of fun. Hopefully you enjoyed them as well. If you're familiar with the base game, Flak 88 and I talked about it. I think the base game is great for 2 people playing in person. Not only are the supply rules different, but the turn order is integrated. Germans do some stuff, Soviets do some stuff, Germans do some stuff, Soviets do some stuff, and then you complete a turn, and then you go to the next turn. And there are other games like that, but that makes it very difficult to do a YouTube war. So the version of rules that we have been testing, we're going to offer up to Doug at HBG as alternate rule set. If you want to do a YouTube war, if you want to simplify the supply rules, if you want to try encirclement, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, then we're giving you a menu of options. Or you can play the game as originally designed, which in itself is fun, and I highly recommend. So with that, I've already talked longer than I need to, I think. Hopefully you've enjoyed these videos. Both Flak 88 and I will be setting up for our next game. It won't be Barbarossa. We are half of a Global War 1985 game that will be done on YouTube later this month, and it will be announced by others, but Flak 88 and I will be one half of the 4 players playing a Scenario 2 game. So if you're interested in Global War 85, keep an eye out for that. More information to come soon. I want to say thank you to Doug and HBG for supporting us, for creating the battle boards that you saw Flak 88 and I use. Those were very helpful. There's a lot of complexity in units here and nationalities, and they're totally compatible with the rule set that we were doing. So I want to thank Doug for his support and HBG's support for this. I want to thank my partner Flak 88, who was leading this effort, has been working on these revisions for quite some time, and appreciate him inviting me to play with him and bring this to you. So for Flak 88, this is Captain G, over and out.